All right, we're going to start with some review questions from last time. So if you know the answer, raise your hand. So what are CocoaPods? A library of networking functions written by Apple. B, a third-party dependency manager for Swift and Objective-C. C, an app developed by Cornell App Dev. Or D, a Ghirardelli Chocolate x Tide collab. Raise your hand if you know the answer. Or call it out. Does anyone know? All right. The answer is B. It's a third-party dependency manager for Swift and Objective-C. So this means that other people outside of Apple can write like libraries for you to use, and oftentimes they're open source and they're on GitHub so that anyone can use them. And we'll be using a CocoaPod today. All right, next question. What file do you open to work on your app after you've run pod init and pod install? Do you A, open your normal Xcode proj file, or B, do you open the newly created XC workspace file?
Someone said it.
Oh, wait. Workspace, yes, correct. Sorry, didn't hear you the first time. All right, awesome. Let's get started. So I'm just going to go over HTTP and JSON. I know networking went a little quickly last time with the iTunes search app, so I just wanted to go over it again. So what is an HTTP request? So anytime you type something into your browser, like google.com, like cornell.edu, you're making an HTTP request. And this is like a form of networking communication between a client and a server. So for example, if you're typing google.com into your browser, you're the client, or the browser is the client, and it's requesting something from google.com's servers. So in iOS development, similarly like a browser, our app is going to be the client, and then someplace on the internet is a server. And there's a lot of different types of HTTP requests. Two of the most common ones are GET and POST. So GET means that you're going to be requesting some sort of data from the internet, and POST is a request where you actually put data onto the internet, and then the server will do something with that. They'll back up a photo or something like that. And so what is a JSON? So JSON is short for JavaScript Object Notation, and it's in the form of KeyValue Pairs. So a lot of times when you make a GET request to an API or to a website, you might get something as a JSON in response, and then you can do whatever you want with that information. So they're key-value pairs. The keys are always strings, and then data is separated by commas. And your values can be either strings, objects, numbers, null, booleans, or arrays. So, for example, things and objects in JSON are denoted by the curly braces. So the example JSON on the right says, name is a key, and the value is Mindy, which is a string. Age is a key, which is maps to a value of 20, which is an int. Favorite foods maps to an array of strings, which is ramen, ice cream, and peanut butter. And then the whole thing is one JSON object because it's wrapped around in the curly braces. Does anyone have any questions about JSON? Okay. So moving on to SnapKit. So SnapKit is a CocoaPod that we'll be using today, and it's a really cool tool for laying out your views. So, do you ever forget to add translates auto resizing mask into constraints equals false? Raise your hand if you've done this. Yes, okay, me too. It is the source of so many errors and it's very frustrating. Do you ever feel like it's very confusing to read all the ns layout constraint.activate, blah, 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 top anchor, bottom anchor, leading anchor, constant, whatever? Does anyone agree? This kind of sucks? Yeah. Okay, same. Do you ever want to write fewer lines of code to lay out your UI views? Yes. Yeah. All right. So, introducing SnapKit. So, SnapKit is a way to do auto layout that just is 100% easier to use and really takes the headache out of using auto layout. So, I'll show you an example. So, for example, you have a UI view. So at the top here, we have let myView equals UI view. You then do view.add subview, myView, like usual. And then the old way is you do myView.translates auto resizing mask equals false, and then you have to activate all of your anchors. So for example, let's say you want to have like padding on the left and padding on the right of 8, and then you want the top to equal the view's top and the bottom to equal the view's bottom. I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with the constraints now. So you have myView.leading anchor, constraint equal to view.leading anchor, constant 8. Same thing for trailing anchor, but the constant is -8. Top anchor is equal to view.top anchor. Bottom anchor is equal to view.bottom anchor. So it's a lot to read, a lot of words. So the new way with SnapKit is it introduces this little .snp to the end of every view, and you use that to make your constraints. So instead of doing leading, trailing, top, bottom, like with all the like really long text, you can do myView.snp.makeConstraints, and then you have this little curly thing, and then there's a variable called make, which actually makes the constraints for that view. So this is saying you want to make the leading constraint equal to the super view offset by 8. And then you want to make the trailing equal to super view offset by -8. You want to make the top equal to super view and bottom equal to super view. And so super view is the view that you've added the subview to. So that makes it a lot easier to read. And also one really cool thing is that if you want to make both the top and the bottom equal to super view, you can chain them together to do make.top.bottom equal to super view. How cool is that? There's like so many fewer lines of code. It looks way better. And it's definitely a lot more readable compared to the NS layout constraint like activate stuff. Okay, so now we're gonna kind of jump into our project that we're gonna be working on today, which is pre-enroll's coming up. It happened for me already today, but we're gonna make a course shopping cart for our CS classes, and we're gonna make a GET request to a JSON on the internet that has just a bunch of dummy classes in it. So as you can see, it might be a little small for people in the back, but there's a JSON object wrapped around the whole thing. Data maps to an object, which maps to a key called classes, and classes maps to an array of a bunch of different JSON objects. And so each class, as you can see, has 4 keys: name, code, instructor, and enrolled. And we're going to use all this information to make our course shopping cart app, which will be like, we'll highlight the green cells if you're enrolled in it, red if you're not, and then we'll actually be able to put all the text, like the course information, onto a table view cell, and then display it on the screen. Has everyone downloaded the starter code? Yes. Okay, great. Let's get started. Should I pause it, the audio player, or no? Okay. All right, so does everyone have their code open? Raise your hand if you do not yet. Okay, do that now. And then everyone else, if you could navigate to wherever your project is in your like directory. So for example, mine is in like lectures/lecture7/lecture7 starter. So does anyone need help navigating to like where their project is? It's probably in downloads. Let's see if I can zoom in. Okay. So if you, you'll know you're in the right folder if you type in ls and press enter, and you should have the .xcode proj in your folder. Help. Raise your hand if you need help getting to where your folder is. Okay, so we're gonna start off by installing our pods just like last time. So does anyone remember what you first type in to start your CocoaPods? Yeah, pod init, good. So we're gonna type that in, let it do its thing. Okay, and then once that's done, let me zoom in a little more. Oh God. And then you type in pod install, and then it should do all this stuff. I need my charger, hold on. Okay, so, okay. Raise your hand if you haven't gotten pod installed yet. Okay, great. Oh, one person? Is it almost done? Okay. All right, so now that you've done this, I have my Xcode actually open, so I should close it. And then open up the XC workspace. So you should open like l7starter.xc workspace. Okay, and we're going to start by installing our pods. So if you remember from last time, we used Alamofire and Swifty JSON to parse out our information from the internet. So we're going to add those pods. So it's pod, single quote, Alamofire, and then pod, single quote, Swifty JSON. And then we're also going to add SnapKit. So we're going to do pod, quote, SnapKit. And then once you've done that, you can save it, and then open up your terminal again, and then do pod install again. And so let that run. Okay. So once you've done that, let me just double check that it's done. Oh, it's not done yet. Okay. So once you've done that, we're gonna go back to our Xcode, and what I like to do is just build. That's Command B, just so that Xcode knows and can import the libraries that you want to use. So that's Command B, and it'll start building up here. And then we're going to get to work on our view controller. Actually, let's start with the course object. So in our course object, we had 4 things displayed in the JSON. So we had the name, the code, like 1998 is this course code, instructor, which is a string, and then enrolled bool. So we're going to create those fields for our object. So var name is of type string, var code is of type int, var instructor is of type string, and then var enrolled is of type bool. Okay, so once we've done this, we need to create an initializer. So if we type in init and then press enter. All right, so here we're going to want to take in information in a JSON object, as I showed before, that was displayed. So we're going to import Swifty JSON. And so this is how we're going to be able to initialize our objects based on the data that we get from the website. So we're going to take in a JSON object, and now we're going to need to initialize our fields. So the way that the information from that JSON that I showed you before was displayed was that each course object has a key value pair. So we're going to do self.name is equal to the value that was associated with the key that was of name, right? So we're going to get the key or the value from name. So this is how you access the value from that JSON. It's kind of like a dictionary. And then we're going to do dot string value. So this is going to get the string out of that value pair in the JSON. And then similarly with code, we're going to do self.code equals JSON code. And then this one's an int, so we're going to do int value. Instructor is a string, so it's JSON instructor dot string value, and then self.enrolled is JSON enrolled dot bool value. So all of these are getting the values out of the key value pairs and the JSONs. Okay, so once we're done with that, now that we have our course object, let's make the table view cell using SnapKit. So I've got a bunch of UI labels here that we're going to initialize, and then we're going to use these constant values that I have to set like the heights and like lay out the subview of the course table view cell that we're going to use in our view controller. So at the top, since we imported, or since we use the pod SnapKit, we can just do import SnapKit. And then in our override init, we're going to want to initialize the name label to UI label, much like before. Hold on. And so we're going to add it to the subview. It's just content view, my bad. And then let's make this name label's text color black. So dot black. And then let's set the font. Let's make it like a big font. So dot system font of size 14. All right, so now we have an instructor label. Let's say the instructor label dot text color is gray, and then the instructor label dot font is going to be dot system font. Let's make it smaller, so of size 12. And then we're going to add that to the subview. Okay, and then one more, we have the course number label. So course number label equals UI label. Let's do the text color is black. Let's say its font is also 12. Actually, let's do 14. And then we have to add the subview. Okay, so now that we've added all of our views to the subview, or sorry, all of our subviews to the view, we can set up our constraints in our function update constraints, just like we did before. But now we're going to use SnapKit. So we want to make the name label 8 offset from the leading and from the top of our table view cell. So how we're going to do that in SnapKit is name label dot snp dot make constraints, and then press enter, and you're going to get this thing called a closure. And that's a function that executes only after the name label has actually been like initialized and added to the subview. And so an easy way to get rid of this, because it's kind of intimidating, is you double click on it, and then you're going to delete constraint maker and replace it with make. So once you've done that, we're going to make the leading and the top equal to the super view, but we want to offset it by this padding constant that we have up here. So we're going to do make dot leading and dot top equal to super view. And then we want to offset it by our padding, so we do dot offset by our padding. Okay, and so now we've done that, we want to give it a height so that it actually shows up on the screen. So we're going to do make dot height dot equal to, and this is kind of like the constant value from NS layout constraint, and we're going to make this equal to our name label height, which is specified above. Okay. Now we're going to want to set up the constraints for the course number label, and we want the course number label to only be, like, we want it to be right next to the name label of the course. So one way that we can do this is course number label dot snp dot make constraints, and you're going to double click on this and delete this and make it make. And we're going to want to do, so this one we want to make the leading anchor of the course number offset from the trailing anchor of the name label. So the way that we do this is make leading equal to, and then you can actually specify what view you want to make this equal to. And so we want to make this equal to the trailing of the name label. So if we do name label dot snp dot trailing, and now we want to make it slightly offset. So we're going to make it offset from by like padding. And then similarly, we want to make the trailing of this text of this label padding offset from the right side of the view. So we're going to do make dot trailing equal to super view, and then we can actually do offset by negative padding. So this will make the right side padding off from the right side of the view. And then we're going to want to give it a height. So we actually can make the top and the height of this label equal to the name label, since they're both on the same, we want them in the same row. So we can do make dot top dot height, and then dot equal to, and then we can specify what we want to make this equal to. So we want to make this equal to name label so that they're in the same row. So this is saying make the top and the height equal to name labels top and height. And then instructor label dot snp, we're going to make the constraints for this as well. And so this one, we're going to want to make it padding offset from the bottom of this row that has the name label and the course label. So we're going to do make, we're first going to make the top equal to, we want to make it offset equal to the bottom of the name label offset by padding. So name label dot snp dot bottom, and then we want to offset it by padding. And then we want to make the leading trail, we want to make the leading also equal to the name label's leading so that they're both offset by padding. So to do this, we do make dot leading equal to like name label. And then the last thing is we want to make the height so that it shows up on the screen. So we do make dot height dot equal to instructor label height. So that's a constant that I wrote at the top of the file. Okay. So now that we've done this, we're going to want to actually, I'm going to make a function that when you call the DQ reusable cell, we can set up the cell in one function with the input of a course object. So to do this, we're going to do func setup, and then with course of object course. And so here we're going to want to set each label's text. So we're going to do name label dot text equals course dot name, course number label dot text equals course dot code. And then, oh wait, this is an int. So if you guys remember, you can cast an int to a string by doing this parentheses thing around it. And all the courses in the JSON that we're going to get from the internet are actually, let's say they're computer science courses, so then we could add a CS space in front of it, and that would show whatever CS space, like 2110, for example. And then we're going to do instructor label dot text is equal to course dot instructor. And then let's say we want to set the background color. So if you're enrolled in it, we can set it to green. And then if you're not, we can set it to red. So if course dot enrolled content view dot background color equals dot green, and then else content view dot background color equals dot red. Okay. So now that we're done with this, do you guys need some time to like copy this down? Okay. So now that we're done with this, we can actually make the calls. We can construct the call to the API. So if we go into Network Manager, we have this URL that has a JSON attached to it, and we're going to make a function that will retrieve the classes from this JSON, and then we can add a completion to it. So what a completion is a function that will return only, you can actually do something to whatever values that you get from the JSON when it's ready. So for example, if you have really slow internet and you didn't add a completion, your app would just be stalling there until you actually got got the data from the web, and then your screen would show up. And that's like really bad user experience, and your app is just basically like a frozen, useless nothing. So what a completion does is you can basically, when the information is ready, you display it on the screen. Otherwise, your app will just be functioning as normal. And this is something called an asynchronous function if you've taken operating systems. So we're going to make a function called get classes. Oops. And we're going to add this completion. And it's at escaping, which means that it can jump out of this function that we're currently writing, and then you can handle whatever you've processed. So it's going to take in take an array of courses, right? So that's what we're getting from the internet in that JSON, and it's going to return void. Okay, so once we've done that, let's import Swifty JSON and AlamoFire. So that we can actually make our network request. So if you remember from last time, we can do AlamoFire dot request. So we're going to want to make a request to, let's see, we're going to want to make a request to that endpoint, and the method is .get, because we're not putting any data onto the internet, we're retrieving data from the internet. And then we don't need any of this other stuff, so we can just delete it. And then we're going to want to validate it to make sure that we got a response. That's okay. And then we're going to get the response JSON. So this again is a completion. So once the response JSON has been processed, our completion handler will do something to it. So in this case, you get a response, and then we're going to do something with that response. And that response is actually the JSON loaded from the internet. And we're going to want to parse that JSON into an array of class objects that we just declared. So based on the response's result, so if it's like a success or a failure, we're going to switch. And then in the event that we get a .success, which is an enum, we have data. And so in the event that we get data back, we're going to want to convert that into a JSON. So let's say let data JSON equals, we want to cast this into a JSON. And then from there, we're going to want to get the value corresponding with that first data JSON string. So if you guys actually go to this like on the internet, you can see what it looks like. Okay, maybe not. I don't know where my bar went. But if you load it on like Google Chrome or whatever, you'll just get like plain text JSON that's formatted, and then you can actually see what the format of the class's JSON looks like. So we're going to get the JSON dictionary. And this is class JSON dictionary. Oh, oops. Oh wait, I forgot to, sorry. So we want to get the value corresponding with data, and then we want to get the dictionary value from that. Because there's the first initial string data mapped to the array of classes. So we're going to want to get that first. And then, hold on. We do if let, so we're going to get an optional array out of this JSON because we don't know if it's actually formatted the way we want it to. It could be nil. So if let class JSON array equal to data JSON, and if you remember, it's mapped to classes, was mapped to an array of a bunch of class objects. So we're going to get the array value from that. And so if we get this class JSON array, we're going to want to append, we're going to want to convert those into course objects that we have, and then we're going to want to process those. So we're going to make a class array equals course. And then we're going to do for each JSON in our class JSON array, we get an array of JSONs. And remember that our initializer took in a JSON value. So we're going to do class array dot append our new element course. So let's instantiate our new course. And if you remember, it takes in a JSON. So we can actually just take in this JSON and then append this new course to our class array. And so once we're done with that, so once we're done appending all of the classes to the class array, we have a class array that we can actually handle and put into our table view. So we're going to call our completion on our class array. Oops. I need to put this inside here. So what this is saying is, so once we've appended all of our new class objects from the JSON, we can handle it wherever and whatever, however we want. And so in our view controller, when we call this getClasses function, we're going to want to like reload our table view, and then all the courses will show up. So there's also a case that we get a failure, oops, let error, and then you can just oops, I put this outside. You can do print error dot localized description just to print the error. Okay, so now that we have our function, that actually will this will process the JSON, convert it all into class objects, and then return it to us, and then we can do whatever we want, such as reload the table view. We're gonna do this in our view controller. So if you remember, we have a table view that we want to set up. So let's do table view equals UI table view. And then we want to set the delegate and the data source. And those are self. So now we have to add the subview, right? And we also have to register the table view cell type. So if you remember, we made a course table view cell. So we .register course table view cell .self for our reuse identifier. And I made a constant called reuse identifier up here, so we can just use that. Okay. And so now that we've added the subview, we want to make the constraints for the table view. So just like we did in using SnapKit before, let's import SnapKit. And then we're going to do table view .snp .make constraints. We're going to double click on this, delete this to make. And so since we want the table view to be like the whole screen, we're going to want to make all of the edges equal to the super view. And so that does 4 things for you. It does the top, makes the top equal to the super view, leading equal to the super view, trailing equal to the super view, and then bottom equal to the super view. And so it's really clean because it's just one line of code. So it's make dot edges dot equal to super view. And that's it. Okay. And now we can load our courses. So this is where we're going to use our network manager. So we're going to do network manager dot get classes. And you can see this completion here. So once the network manager has made an HTTP request to the JSON website, once it's parsed everything into course objects and then appended it to a course array, it'll handle, let's just call this courses. So we can handle this here, and then we can append these all to the to our course array here, and then we can reload the table view. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set the self.courses equal to the courses, and then we're going to do table view table view dot reload data. And so this means that we've gotten our data that we need to display on our table view, and we're going to reload it so that everything shows up. And so now we just have 2 more functions left. Actually, 1 more. We also need height for row@, and we can just return like 50. So here, we're going to want to dequeue our table view cells. So let's do if let cell equal to table view dot dequeue with identifier. So we have a constant called reuse identifier for the index path. So here we have, we have to cast it as a course table view cell. And so if it's a course table view cell, we're going to want to use that setup function that we made before. So we can do cell dot setup with course. And this is going to be from our courses array in the view controller. So it's going to be courses index path dot row. And then we can just return this cell. And then for number of rows in section, much like a lot of other table view projects you've probably seen, we just return the count of the courses array. Okay, so now that we have all of our code here, we're going to see it. Let's see if it runs. And so what's really cool about this network manager is that you're not going to be stalled, like your app will still load even when it's making that HTTP request in the background. And so when it returns, it'll return you this courses variable right here. And then once you have that, you can set it to your own courses data structure and then reload the data, and then everything will show up on the screen. So whenever you make network requests, you should always have your completion that's existing, so that your network requests don't have to happen and block your views from loading, for example. So once this loads, does anyone have any questions? Yeah. That's a good question. My MacBook, when it loads the iPhone 10, it really lags. So that's just a personal preference thing. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions about SnapKit, about networking, about JSON? No? Scroll up, down, yes. And hopefully this code will also help you for project 6. No, 7? 6. Due tomorrow. No, Wednesday. My bad. Is it going? There we go. Oh, okay. That means there's a constraint error. Hold on a second. Oh, hold on. Does anyone know what I missed in this what I'm missing here? Does anyone remember what you should do when you have when you dequeue a table view cell? No. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So once I've done that, hopefully everything will show up. All right. So here are all the classes. Does anyone have this on their iPhone simulator? Nice. Okay. So if you have any other questions, please let me know. I think it's about time for the other courses to come in for Hack Week. So if you have any questions, come up right now, right before people start coming in, and I will post the video and the lecture slides tonight. Great. Thank you. Can I stop this? Just so if you let me stop.